Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to Founder Institute Karachi session. This is Sayyid Abdul Basit, one of the director of Founder Institute. I hope every one of you can hear me. So we're just waiting for the guest. We'll start in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum Taimur, how are you?
Doing very well, Ji. How are you?
I'm good. Assalamu alaikum Rafiq.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
I'm good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Assalamualaikum Rafiq. Assalamualaikum Taimur. This is Omar.
Assam.
Hi, Omar.
Hi,
How are you
yeah.
doing?
Very good, very good. Thank you for being so comfortable.
उमर
Okay,
आपकी
it's a-
आवाज थोड़ी सी स्लो आ रही है.
Okay, my face is practically inside my screen right now, so
I was just saying it's a lot easier to be punctual on a Zoom meeting, to be honest.
indeed.
Umar, do we have Iram right now?
Okay.
Okay, so Umar, shall we start or shall we wait for a few minutes?
No, I think we should start. It's not fair to the people who've been on, who are on time. So let's start.
Okay, please, over to you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to this session, which promises to be quite an exciting one on the challenges and upside of fundraising for startups in Pakistan today. This is part of our efforts from the Founder Institute to build a stronger, more robust ecosystem in Pakistan, starting with where it all begins, which is the founder themselves. As you could probably tell from the name, the Founder Institute works to or works with founders to give them a stronger perspective on how to go about running a business. Many people come to us with an idea. Some people come to us even without an idea, but with a need to do something, to start something. And this is what the Founder Institute really specializes in. So we work with founders to become more professional founders, to get them ready for the journey, because it is a journey. And this is now, alhamdulillah, our second cohort. We graduated our first cohort in May, and we're now launching our second cohort, which will inshallah kick off in November. So I would like to welcome two of our guests today. Rafiq Malik, welcome to the program, as it were. Rafiq is the Chief Operating Officer of Baikia, which has been, I think, regularly in the news, but more so recently because of their remarkable raise that they've done, which I believe is a record for Pakistan in terms of the value raised. So welcome, Rafiq. We're really looking forward to learning more about the journey and the challenges.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. Our second guest today brings a slightly different perspective. His name is Taimur Noorani. I believe he also answers to Timmy, but we shall leave that for the moment. Taimur works with Ithaca Capital, and so we're very fortunate to have multiple perspectives coming from an institution like Ithaca as well. So Taimur, welcome to the show. So
Thank you.
I think between the two of you, if I were to leave it to you guys, Taimur would insist that Rafiq went first, and Rafiq would probably say that Taimur went first. So I think we will just go with Rafiq first, Taimur. What do you reckon?
That's fine.
Okay, and so sorry. Just before we kick off, Rafiq, we've just had our third guest join as well. His name is Asad Khan, also a headliner at this point, a former colleague and a dear friend from our days at Kareem. Asad used to be the GM of Kareem South, and he just recently made the news for the largest pre-Series A round raised in Pakistan. So, Asad, thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Assalamualaikum guys, Assalamualaikum everyone.
Alaikum assalam, Asad. How are you?
Congratulations.
TikTok. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
I once heard in a movie where people were congratulating someone, they said, "Congratulations on the enormity of your success." I think that works in multiple contexts. So with that, without further ado, Rafiq, over to you.
Sure. So I guess we can just touch upon a little bit about what our journey was in sort of in trying to raise money for Bikea. I think when we started about 4 years ago, the ecosystem wasn't as mature as it is today, and you really had to sort of sell the idea. It was a much harder sell, I believe. Because people weren't really comfortable with just giving money away, for an idea which may or may not work, and the better chance of it not working actually. However, I think one of the things that we were lucky. Ithaca was actually around then when we raised our series, when we raised our seed funding. In fact, they were the seed investors in Bikea. We were lucky that we found them. They believed in us. But I think that there is a certain approach that goes into that, and I just want to sort of talk a little bit about that. Is that a lot of people essentially come from the idea stage and think that just having a good idea would sort of do the trick. But I think you need a lot more experience to sort of go with that. A lot of young people are trying to look to raise money as well. But if you do look at a lot of the people on this panel here right now, I would say most of us are in our mid to late 30s. And I think that demonstrates that you do need some experience under your belt before you actually go out and try and ask investors for money. And the other thing is that when you do, right, I think one of the other things that people generally don't give a lot of importance to is creating a business plan, an in-depth business plan, which will require not just you doing a lot of research with other comparables in the region or in the same vertical. Basically, I think what I'm saying is that if you're going to sell an idea to somebody, you need to be that in that room. You need to know the most about that idea than anybody else, right? And I think that's what investors are generally looking for in founders and co-founders. People who've done their homework, people who have the ability, who have a little bit of a track record, who've done their homework, and have the ability to tell a story, right? And sort of tie it all in. So I feel that I think it's those are important traits to have. And one of the things I've also noticed actually, and I'll just sort of call it out here, is the ability to present. A lot of people in Pakistan have a great idea, but their ability to present the idea is not mature enough. And I think that's a really good skill to develop for people who are listening in over here. Definitely sort of do many iterations of your pitch and your spiel and your presentation, so you actually get it to a level where it needs to be, that you can woo investors or convince them that you're the right man for the job. And I think I'll let other people speak now.
All right. Wow. Before I hand over to the next person, though, can you talk about anything specific pertaining to the recent round? Any tips that might be helpful for someone who's looking to attract a NASPERS or the equivalent?
Yeah, so one of the things that I will say is that people who are looking to get into this industry or are looking to raise money, they need to figure out what sort of a problem they're solving, okay, and what the impact of that problem is going to be, and sorry, of that solution is going to be, right? What's the addressable market? Does your idea, is it scalable? Does it have legs? Are people going to adopt it easily? All of these things you need to consider, right? And then you have to obviously demonstrate that you can do it, right? It's doable. A lot of these things that in the tech world that we try and do are actually being done in the offline market, right? So it's just a different way of interacting with the marketplace or with the customers, right? And I think keeping a really close eye on your costs. Ikea has a very frugal culture, where we don't go out and spend a lot of money to try and fix the problem that we are identifying. We're trying to identify a problem and try and fix it by maybe localizing our product, or thinking of different ways. Not just, the idea is not to raise money and spend it and buy yourself out of that sort of problem. The idea is to actually provide a solution to that problem and use the money to scale your your business, right? So the adoptability factor, I think you shouldn't be using the money to try and get people to adopt and give discounts for them to sort of come in. And I think when you talk about players like Naspers, who are serious players, right? Serious investors globally, those are the type of things they like, right? They look at a company and they're like, okay, you've built a business and you've done it at a fraction of a cost, where other businesses around the world have spent a lot more money trying to build the same business that you have. So obviously you've hit on something that's local, that's unique, right? And I think you've got to find that as a business. You have to find that for yourself and figure that out. And once you do, just run as fast as you can to make sure it happens.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to let you off the hook temporarily, but please don't go anywhere, because I'm sure that there will be a few more questions coming your way from our audience.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Rafiq. Taimur, would you like to go next?
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
So, you know, there's, I just want to start off by saying, like, high level, the formula to getting it right in a academic sort of framework is pretty simple. And I think Rafiq has already touched upon some of the most important things. When you are looking to create a business, understand the value that you are creating for your customers, for your partners, for your for your employees. Um, Really understanding value creation as a first step before you figure out how much of that value can you appropriate for your own shareholders, is really critically important. And as part of that, it is really important that you build a relationship with the problems that you're solving, and really care about those problems. Because, you know, to be really honest, ideas are a dime a dozen. And at this point, I'm just going to interrupt myself and give a bit of a background on myself. Um, I started working in 2013 when I worked for a private equity firm started by the Daoud Group, which famously, owns Engro and Hub Power Company, etc. Um, as part of that journey in the 2.5 years that I was there, I met with about 250 to 300 companies across across pretty much all of the conventional and some of the non-traditional sectors. I then worked for another private equity firm that was jointly sponsored by Bank Alfala and USAID. I briefly, for a year, worked with the Cinepax Group as head of strategy and planning, and then I joined Ithaca Capital in 2018. And so I have worked with multiple players in a very nascent private equity industry that is, you know, motivated by the idea that private investments in Pakistan are an exciting space that hasn't been cracked yet. And while my counterparts in the rest of the world, whether developing or developed, do a lot more transactions per year than I have seen, and most of my career has been spent in figuring out and sort of evangelizing a message about what is it that entrepreneurs in Pakistan aren't doing, which is at least a part of the reason that money is not available to them. Um, and I think really the um, ideas, because there is such a large supply gap in Pakistan, are a dime a dozen. You go on Google and you will, find 100 different ways to approach whatever problems you're seeking to solve. When I was working with Cinepax, cinemas are the largest out of home entertainment expense globally, right? And so figuring out how to maximize our rake in from concessions, or sort of leveraging price elasticities by charging different ticket prices at different times to different types of people. None of this was innovative. But falling in love with the problem and developing the execution capacity to address them despite the severe and manifold hurdles that you will face operating in Pakistan is really the challenge. And so if you can find something that you care about enough to spend the next 10 years, the next 20 years solving for, that's step one. Um, the next thing is, and from an investor's perspective, I think this is one of the most important things from an evaluation perspective that I look at, is the team's genesis and its depth of experience. Um, if you have people that have previously worked together, that's great. And if you can demonstrate, values like trust and integrity, that's really incredibly important. Um, Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is understanding what you're replacing. And again, Rafiq has spoken about this already. If you're looking at an online business, whatever problem you're seeking to solve is something that somehow is being addressed. People are still living their lives. And there is some form of offline alternative or some kind of, non-modern alternative that people are using. Um, and particularly, I want to talk about my experience, my failed experience with starting up a chain of grocery stores, of premium grocery stores, that sought to modernize the retail landscape in Pakistan. We saw this massive opportunity, right? 70% of grocery spending in Pakistan happens on a weekly basis rather than a monthly basis. So while the Imtiazes and Hyperstars, etc. of the world are, really, really competing for that 30% grocery spending space, the 70% space was apparently to us completely empty. And so we started out with saying that if we can achieve a similar sort of scale, then we can offer the same economies to our um, uh, to, uh, to our customers in a modern format with convenience, with better service levels, etc. And underpinning this thesis was a certain arrogance, to be very honest. And that arrogance was that we can offer something better than is currently being offered just because we have access to Google. And because we have had exposure in different countries and we have seen 7-Elevens on every corner in Thailand. And what we realized is that the existing grocery store is offering an intense relationship with its customers that we just couldn't replicate. The Kiriana store right next door to us knew every family in that neighborhood. They had a running credit line with every family and the ability to minimize delinquencies. Um, we had a great ERP, but this guy knew all of his 8,000 SKUs in his head, their availability, when they were running out, what he would need, etc. And what we couldn't easily replicate was the ability for somebody to just call this guy up and say, hey, we're running out of this. Could you send this? Could you send this over to us? And the guy would say, well, I'm pretty sure you're also running out of X, Y, and Z. I'm also sending this and I'm adding it to your monthly tab. And you know what? We'll settle it at the end of the month. No worries. And that's an incredible level of service that we underestimated. And he wiped the floor with us and we lost our money on that investment. And I just want to really emphasize that, again, understand what the problem is that you are solving, make sure that it exists, and make sure that you are solving it for your customers in a better way than is currently being solved. And it's really, really important to be able to do that. Um, and one last thing that I really want to speak about is, there is this pain point every time that, an investor gets into a business where, uh, my first 6 months after any given investment is always, this battle with management about internal controls, reporting standards, and establishing a culture of evidence-based decision making. When you are very close to a business, some assumptions start becoming truisms for you. And you accept these, these truths without really having questioned them and without having explained them to your investors. It is really important to build a culture within your organization that says we are going to hold people accountable for their responsibilities, their authorities, and their thoughts and their strategies. And we are going to create a transparent environment where we can communicate those accountabilities to anybody who asks. And being able to go to an investor and saying, here's the problem that I want to solve. Here's the evidence that this exists. Here is the kind of competitor that exists and what service level they are currently offering. And here's the scope of what we can do, and back that all with real evidence. That's a business that I would be very excited to invest in, regardless of the sector. So yeah, that's all I have for now. And happy to take any questions.
Awesome, Temur. So I'm going to take this opportunity to put you right back on the spot for one more second and ask you about the reasons specifically that Ithaca got involved with Bikea. Because you've talked,
I'm so sorry.
Did we just lose you?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm back. I'm back.
There you
The last thing I heard was Ithaca got involved.
with Baikia specifically. So
Ah,
you've laid out a really nice framework, and I kind of see where the pieces fit. But for the benefit of those people who are kind of new to the ecosystem or who are contemplating entry into the the world of entrepreneurship, what are the three,
yeah.
four things that you could point to um, that wouldn't have Rafiq flinching because you revealed confidential information? But just generally, what was it about Ikea that brought you guys in?
Yeah, so first of all, like, let me just lay out some context. Ithaca Capital has been an operator and an investor in Pakistan for about 22 years. The platform started out as an entrepreneur. So in 1998, our founding member started a company called Mustang Security, which is now one of the largest security guard companies in the country, and subsequently, started a few other companies. And so we were an entrepreneur before we were an investor. Um, and when we became an investor, we were primarily a special situations investor. What does that mean? It means that we were primarily interested in very distressed situations where we could buy exciting assets on the cheap. So traditionally for us, looking at an opportunity like Ikea was very, very much outside of our mandate. And so, that just goes to add to the pitch that, Munib Rafiq Manan came in with and convinced an investor that was otherwise not even interested in the space to put down money. Um, and really, unfortunately, this predates my joining Ithaca, and so a lot of this is just hearsay. But really, what was exciting is, again, something that Rafiq already touched upon, is the experience of the team. They had a demonstrated track record of building non-traditional business in Pakistan and being able to execute on the ground, some very complex partnerships that go outside of the walls of your business. So that was, uh, the demonstrated operational capacity of the company was where it's at, where it was, very compelling for us. And the second thing was that they were able to demonstrate an opportunity and a problem in a very succinct kind of compelling way. The idea was there are 17 million motorcycles in this country, primarily owned by a class that is hustling to make ends meet. And we can put some extra change in their pocket by providing a service of transportation that is otherwise limited. And their ability to demonstrate the problem for their riders and for their customers in a very succinct kind of way, and be able to display a team that can execute, is what compelled us to invest and take this bet. And by the way, for the longest time, in our minds, there was a 99% chance that we would just have to write off the money. And the 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 growth story of that probability, has been really exciting for us.
I'll add one thing if I can, please, over here. Just and from the get-go, I think we were very conscious about the unit economics of our business. We weren't in the business to raise money just for the sake of raising money and make it look sexy. We were in the business to raise money and make the business profitable eventually. And from day one, if we did the math on the business, it was like, if you buy a motorcycle which is 50,000 rupees brand new, right, and you collect 120 rupees or 125 rupees on a booking on a ride, okay, and you do, let's say, 10 rides a day, that's 1,200 bucks, right? Let's say you take some money out for your fuel and all that, it's 1,000 rupees a day still that you can net, and you work 25 days, you take home 25,000 bucks. In 2 months, you paid for your asset, right? Then you pay, then your everything else is labor on top of that, right? So in our model, the actual cost of asset is not really incorporated, right? Whereas if you get into other vehicle types, the assets are very expensive. The same asset in Pakistan, if it'll cost you the same in San Francisco and Dubai, right? If you buy a car in San Francisco, it's going to be $20,000. It's the same thing in Pakistan, right? So the
Yeah.
economics made a lot of sense, I think, and even from the investor's point of view, as Timur said, that the sheer market size of the supply, 17 million motorcycles versus 4 million cars or rickshaws or whatnot, made a lot of sense.
No, and there are other things about Bikea that were unique from day one as well. So, for example, the fact that you were the only app that offered Urdu
The
from
localization,
from the get-go.
absolutely, the localization factor
Yeah.
made a big difference, right? And one of the things that I'm sure you guys have heard Manip talk about this a lot. He keeps saying that we're a nation that can't search and type in our own language, right? And even in English, it's pretty tough for people to sort of choose destinations or type in the right destinations. So localizing a menu where
Yeah,
people can just read and click was a aha moment at Bikea. We're like, this is what it takes for people to sort of understand how to type, how to identify that they want to go to Landi and not Liari, by making a spelling mistake in Google. So yeah, some of that localization absolutely is what it takes, and those are the granularities that you figure out once you're in the game, that sets you apart from the other players.
yes. So on the note of other players, uh, I'm going to ask Asad to jump in here as one of the other players in the ecosystem. Kareem and Bikea were head to head for the longest time, and um, Asad, welcome. And Asad left Kareem um, to embark on a journey with his own startup called Meds and More. So Asad, over to you, please.
Gee, sounding guys, Umar, thanks for having me here. So I think when I was listening to Rafiq or Temur ko, I think there were so many, you can relate to almost everything that is being talked about. So ये मेरा fourth fundraiser with the fourth company, and if I compare that to previous three, this was probably the easiest, right? So I'll talk a bit about it. Because it takes a while for you to get to that stage where you go after the capital, but also the capital comes after you. You need certain notches on your shoulder. So I think I'm going to talk about from two perspectives, right? I'm going to talk about and that's my experience, right? That could be slightly different for others who raise capital. एक तो है कि what do investors look for, right? When you approach them, what investors are actually looking for? क्या चीजें देख रहे होते हैं investors if you approach an investor for the fundraise? And then we'll briefly look at कि यार हमारे पास fundraise करने की sources क्या हो सकती हैं, right? Where can you go? What areas can you look for to raise funds? So I think over the past 15, 20 years, whenever I've approached an investor to raise money, so my gut feeling has always been that there are three main areas that investors look for, and with the same priority order. So सबसे पहले investors look at the founders themselves, right? Before they look at the idea, before they look at the concept, the economics, everything else, they look at the founders. So founders is the most important decision maker for investors. और founders के अंदर क्या देखते हैं? Founders, they look at founders के अंदर, okay, पहली बात तो of course look at if the guy is smart, if the competent guy है, if the guy can deliver what he's saying. So तीन चीजें founders के अंदर important होती हैं. एक तो आपके पास, yes, if the founder is competent. The second is founder is credible. Credible means that he can deliver what he's saying. And then if the founder is smart, credible, he can deliver. The other most important thing is soft skills, right? The guy may be a brilliant guy, can deliver what he's saying, but can I actually work with that guy? So soft skills, right? So if the guy is too rigid, etc. So the most important thing that founders look at is, or the investors look at, is founders themselves. So founders' key credibility, founders' key work ethics, founder track record. Now, there are lots of things. I think Rafiq also mentioned that you need to have a track record, but it doesn't have to be a successful, entrepreneur track record. So if you approach investors, whatever you did in university, you might have been part of some thing at university. You might have been part of something extracurricular activities. Whatever your achievements have been so far, that can portray that you are a doer. Whatever you're doing, you can make it happen. You need to bring it out. Second, आपके पास होता है founder के बाद idea. And idea के बाद I think Taimur talked about, Rafiq talked about. When you talk about idea, yes. So idea are, if you search Google for an idea, you'll get tons of stuff back on idea. Idea needs to, once you have an idea, it needs to be thoroughly researched. Thoroughly researched means कि आपका concept क्या है, right? What is your market size? What is your competition analysis? What is your strength, weaknesses, etc. All these analysis, etc. So उसके अंदर आपके पास, I think raising capital is very organized work. It's very structured work. You need to make lists. You need to make lots of lists. You need to make lots of to-do lists. So आपके पास, one of the things that I used to do early on in my 20s, I used to do the elevator pitch. की पूरी तैयारी करता था 30 seconds के elevator pitch के. Elevator pitch क्या होती है आपके 30 seconds के अंदर, can you explain what you do in 30 seconds? अगर आप lift में किसी के साथ खड़े हो जाते हैं, उसके अंदर I used to write down, I used to research lots of things कि आपके पास पहली बात ये कि what do you do? Idea क्या है आपका, right? वो one liner क्या हो सकता है? उसके बाद what problem are you solving is the second thing. उसके बाद आपके पास why are you different from everybody else out there? For example, Pakistan के अंदर, so with the Baikia's success and Kareem's success and other success, I think we are seeing a mushrooming of startups doing delivery, last mile delivery, last mile grocery, right? What is different about you than everybody else? फिर उसके बाद जिनसे आप मिलने जा रहे हैं elevator pitch के अंदर, or whoever you pitching, you must research your audience. उनको आपकी इंडस्ट्री का पता है, आपकी इंडस्ट्री में उन्होंने कोई और इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की हुई हैं, उनके पर्सनालिटी लाइक्स एंड डिसलाइक्स क्या हैं, एटसेट्रा. So seasoned investors and new investors. So all these things you need to know about your investors. So आपके पास एक elevator pitch तो at all times ready होनी चाहिए. You never know who you come up across, कहीं मिल जाए बाहर आपको 30 seconds की elevator pitch. So idea के बाद आता है last, I think, उसकी economics, जिसके ऊपर Taimur talked about, Rafiq talked about. So when I started at Kareem 3.5 years ago, so Kareem के अंदर, Kareem was burning almost $4 million a month in Pakistan, right? So महीने के $4 million जेब से जा रहे थे, and investors' mood was कि यार just go and spend and increase market share, and monetization बाद में देख लेंगे. That mentality is now, have turned the corner. So your idea needs to be sustained. उसमें sustainability होनी चाहिए, उसका पूरा roadmap होना चाहिए. Okay, fine, you will spend money over the next 2 years, over the next 3 years, but you will eventually make money. So you need a roadmap. So उसके अंदर आपके पास unit economics, आपके margins, आपके burn rate, आपकी profitability, and you need to put together a thorough forecasting over the next. If I talk about my current venture, the most time I spend when I left Kareem, or even before I left Kareem, I spent 4 or 5 months just putting together a business model, researching the market, economics के pharmaceutical के economics क्या होती हैं, unit economics क्या होती हैं, retail पे margin क्या होता है, wholesale पे margin क्या होता है, क्या mix of medicine sale होता है. I spoke to, I think, everybody in Dawai.pk. I spoke to most people at Davago. I spoke to pharmaceutical companies, and I put together a comprehensive business model कि हमारे पास इस industry के अंदर. So I wanted to make sure when I'm in the room, I know most about these people, even more than the people who've been in this industry for 20 years. So no question can go unanswered if I pitch it to somebody idea. So yes, आपके पास पहली चीज तो होती है, just to recap, as a founder, you need to look competent, you need to be credible, with some track record, not if not in business, then in university, if you're fresh out of university, you need to have something to tell about yourself. And then उसके बाद आपके पास idea के अंदर आपके पास you need to have market sizing, competition analysis, SWOT, all these things in idea, and then your economics. So you must know your economics for your business. क्या आपके business के अंदर margins क्या होंगी, unit economics क्या होगी, burn कितना करेंगे, profitability वगैरह कब आएगी, and you need to have a structure over the next few years. So that's one part of that, right? So this is what investors look for. आप जब जाके pitch करेंगे, they're going to ask you all these questions. And you need answers for all these questions. Now, on the other side, अगर आप business ground up build करना चाह रहे हैं, so my previous 3 ventures were outside Pakistan. So एक Germany में था, एक Denmark में था, एक UK में था. And all of these 3 businesses, एक हमारा था जिसमें हमने Reunion company build की थी Germany के अंदर, it became the biggest at one point in Germany. एक हमारा book rental business था Denmark के अंदर, एक हमारा security industry का Safer Streets के नाम से business था UK में. For all these 3 businesses, I bootstrapped. Bootstrap means bootstrapping क्या होती है आपके पास कि आप कुछ अपनी जेब से पैसे डालते हैं, फिर अपने दोस्तों से जाके भीख मांगते हैं, फिर अपने रिश्तेदारों के पीछे भागते हैं, फिर आप जो मिलता है ना आपको आपकी एड्रेस बुक के अंदर, आप उसके पीछे भागते हैं, यार प्लीज पैसे दे दो, राइट? किसी से 200 पाउंड ले लिए, किसी से 500 पाउंड ले लिए, किसी से 1000 पाउंड ले लिए. सो इट्स अ लॉट ऑफ हसल. सो वो उन तीनों बिजनेसेस के लिए I ran after the same people. और तीसरे पे तो वो मुझे मारने आ गए थे, राइट? कि अब और फर्स्ट दे मेड मनी, सेकंड दे लॉस्ट ऑल ऑफ बैक, दूसरे में सारे दोबारा हार गए वही, और फिर तीसरे में फिर उन्हीं के पीछे भाग रहा था मैं. बट राइट, सो यू नीड टू बी परसिस्टेंट. परसिस्टेंसी इज द की. सो तीनों बिजनेस बूटस्ट्रैप किए थे. सो आपके पास एक जो सबसे अच्छा तरीका होता है स्टार्टअप को फंड करने का, स्टार्टअप फाउंड करने का, वेयर इन्वेस्टर्स नो कि भाई यू बिलीव इन योर आइडिया, आपको अपनी प्रोडक्ट पे सबसे ज्यादा भरोसा है. उसका तरीका ये होता है कि आप पहले, इफ पॉसिबल, द बेस्ट केस सिनेरियो इज बूटस्ट्रैप इट. अपने पैसे, वालदैन के पैसे, दोस्तों के पैसे, रिश्तेदारों के पैसे, एंड हुएवर यू नो, राइट, बिल्ड अ बेसिक प्रोडक्ट, अ बेसिक फंक्शनिंग प्रोडक्ट जो आपको पहली 2-4 सेल्स निकाल के दे दें. बूटस्ट्रैप इट. That's the best way of setting up a startup, especially if you're a young entrepreneur. एक तो it will give investors a lot of confidence in you that you believe in your product and you have built the business from scratch. It's not just the idea. So bootstrapping is one, right? For me, that's the best way of, if possible, that is the best way of setting up a business. Before you approach any investor, any angel, VC, etc., that's the best way. Put something together that you can portray. फिर आपके पास what other channels are there, right? So आपके पास before you start approaching VCs etc., हमारे पास बहुत सारे एक चीज होती है crowdfunding. So I've done that. UK के अंदर एक प्लेटफॉर्म का मैंने उसमें लिमिट रखी हुई थी crowdfunding की कि मुझे उस वक्त 1.5 लाख पाउंड रेज करा था. So I only managed to raise 95,000 pounds. वो मुझे मिले नहीं. जब तक आप वो लिमिट रीच नहीं करते, I learned यार I should have put down 20,000 pounds ताकि मुझे पैसे तो मिल जाते. Because if you don't reach your target, you don't get the money. So सारे पैसे वापस चले गए उनको. But it is possible, right? So आप crowdfunding platforms हैं बहुत सारे. If you know you have a good idea, लोगों को attract करेगा, go on to crowdfunding websites. आपके Kickstarter, पाकिस्तान में भी खुल गए हैं शायद 4-5 crowdfunding websites. So try to get crowd to fund your idea. That's also one source. फिर आपके पास क्या होता है, यहाँ पे एक चीज होती है angel investing. Angel investing क्या होती है कि they are not institutions, they are very rich individuals, जिनके पास पैसे बहुत सारे होते हैं और उन्हें पता नहीं होता इन पैसों को करेंगे, right? So angel investment, they won't give you a lot of money, but they'll give you money to start your business. They're not that, they're risk averse, and hard to approach, but it's an option, right? Angel investing, you can approach people with a high net worth to invest with you. फिर आपके पास एक चीज, फिर आपके पास कहते हैं VC, वेंचर कैपिटल, राइट? सो पाकिस्तान पिछले 4-5 साल के अंदर हैज सीन अ phenomenal growth in venture. I think it's a really good to see पाकिस्तान के अंदर this whole ecosystem developing. So सरमायाकार हो गया, Lexan VC हो गया, you know, Gobi Ventures, Minaga, so all these places, and they're actually actively looking for good deals. Taimur is in this space. I think he's actively looking for that. He's actively looking for deals. और VCs का पाकिस्तान की जो खासतौर पे VCs हैं उनकी प्रॉब्लम ये they're not finding any good deals in Pakistan. वो पैसा डिप्लॉय करने के लिए maybe they're not maybe people don't know how to approach those VCs maybe don't know if they're approachable उनके पास जाना कैसे है. It's very very simple. I think as this industry I think we need to do a better job of telling people कि यार हमारे पास आना कैसे है और क्या लेकर आना है. So I think इन सब की वेबसाइट्स हैं. I'm sure तैमूर की भी वेबसाइट होगी, Lexins की, Sarmayakar ki. Go onto their website, look at the investments they have made so far, look at the amount of money they have deployed, look at the kind of people they work with, and then approach them. So VCs, I think they're good fair game right now. फिर आपके पास होते हैं पाकिस्तान में भी. So you've got incubators, accelerators, right? जहाँ पे आप अपने आप को host करा सकते हैं. Nest IO type जगह, जहाँ पे आप 4-5 महीने के लिए 6 महीने के लिए they give you space. आप उन incubators में accelerator में जाके host कर दें 5 महीने के लिए, and that gives you a lot of learning. They also give you access to people who have money. They also give you tools and tricks of the trade. They help you build your product, etc. So if possible, that's a great way to start your company, to get incubated in one of these places. That's Nest IO, etc. फिर हमारे पास, so I think people are listening. वो जो मैं शुरू में बात कर रहा था, raising fund is a very organized task, right? It's very structured, it's very organized. You need to make a list and you need to make lots of to-do lists. ये सारी लिस्टें बनानी बैठ के आपने कि possibility क्या है. फिर आपके पास होते हैं competitions. So I also applied. I was part of a few competitions outside. So we won one competition to raise money. ये competitions बहुत सारे होते हैं. Universities कर रही होती हैं, governments कर रही होती हैं, companies कर रही होती हैं. They're giving out shouts out in the market कि यार आपने if you have an idea, if you have a good product, participate in that competition. If your idea is good enough, you'll raise money on that. So ये जो सारी चीजें बात की, if I summarize that, so आपके पास एक तो होता है the best bootstrap, right? Bootstrap your business, build something up. फिर आपके पास crowdfunding होती है. Make a list all the crowdfunding platforms. Make a list of the kind of ideas that people normally fund. फिर उसके बाद आपके पास होते हैं angel investments. Make a list of high net worth people. देखो कहाँ जाते हैं, कौन से रूट से गुजरते हैं, कौन सी बिल्डिंग में जाते हैं, right? Where can you bump into them? फिर आप उसके बाद आप देखेंगे कि आपके पास वेंचर कैपिटल कौन से पाकिस्तान में, which venture capital, उन वेंचर कैपिटल्स ने इससे पहले कहाँ इन्वेस्टमेंट की हुई है, उनका टिल्ट किस तरफ है, किस किस्म के इन्वेस्टर्स में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं वो. Go onto their website, look at the founders, the GPs, the LPs, the investors in that. फिर उसके बाद आपके पास आते हैं incubators, accelerator. Make a list of those. सारे सबकी लिस्ट बनाएं, कहाँ किस शहर में बैठे हैं, क्या उनके साइकिल्स हैं, कब होस्ट करते हैं आपको वो. फिर आपके पास you need to be constantly searching for आपके पास competition कहाँ पे हो रहे हैं, कौन prizes दे रहा है, and then approach that in a very structured, methodical way. So it's not a haphazard, it's not a chaotic work, it's a very organized work. It requires certain degree of discipline and it requires certain degree of persistence. Right, before somebody else stops me, I'm going to stop now.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was actually going to stop you because it was a very interesting journey, and thank you for encouraging people to start stalking investors. I'm sure that'll go down really well in the investor community.
Find out Taimur किस रास्ते से ऑफिस जाता है, किस रास्ते कब बिल्डिंग में दाखिल होता है. Figure out when can you bump into him and do your 30-second elevator pitch. I used to do that, London में.
Yeah, I'm sure that was very intimidating to
You're going to need a security protocol now, yaar.
Good thing my company owns a security company, right?
There you go. You made the right investment.
That's our first. But no, I just want to jump in at this point. I just want to jump in at one point and say, okay, I couldn't agree, more. Somebody that can display the ability to hustle for investments is like a great starting point, right? Because at least that tells the investor that you're willing to hustle for the rest of your business as well. And just to add some context, while in the entrepreneur community there may be a pressure to be able to raise funds, for us in the investor community, a running theme is something called deal pressure. If we have funds available to us, we have a clock on our IRRs, right? Which means from the point that the money was made available to us, the longer it takes us to deploy, the less time value we have on that money. And so it is, and because it is so hard to find investable platforms in Pakistan, a lot of investors succumb to this notion of deal pressure, wherein, some of us end up doing very bad transactions just so that we can display to our investors that we are deploying money. And so this disconnect of entrepreneurs not being able to raise money and investors not being able to deploy money, I think, uh, that gap needs to be filled by more entrepreneurs following up with us to explain why their business is exciting.
Awesome. We are under another kind of pressure right now because the questions for the panelists are beginning to mount up. However, we have with us today our fourth panelist, Mr. Faraz Bandukta, who has been a
No, 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 no.
fixture.
Sorry,
Is Faraz
sorry.
not, is Faraz not here?
Faraz was here. No, no, Faraz was here. He just got
Ah.
a call, so he had to log off for a few minutes. So I think
Okay.
let's carry on with the session. As soon as he joins, then we will take him.
Okay, wonderful. So then maybe we can address some questions right now.
Should we ask questions or should we give the FI overview first? The program,
Yes, okay, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that?
and then we'll take the
So,
questions
Basit?
all together. Basit,
Yeah,
over to
sure.
Basit.
Okay, I hope you guys can see my screen.
Not yet.
It's just about to come. Yeah, it's there.
Okay, so Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Sayyid Abdul Basit, one of the director of Founder Institute Karachi chapter. So let me give you a quick go through what is Founder Institute is all about. As Asad has mentioned about the funding and the ecosystem, that how it would work in Pakistan. So Founder Institute started in 2009. It is world largest pre-seed accelerator with presence in more than 190 plus cities, having 115,000 mentors worldwide, with 4,000 startups, or you can say founders who graduated from Founder Institute program. And the overall valuation of these startups, it's more than $20 billion. So Founder Institute believe that entrepreneurs can create real impact on society, and that's why they are pre-seed. They're looking for startups or founders who are at the pre-seed stage and would want to work with them and develop their idea, and then help them to launch their business. And mainly these startups are the technology startups. That all startups that Founder Institute helped till date, it's a technology-based companies. So if we seeing the last 10 months since COVID happened, so if we go back 11 years ago, same situation happened. Like in April 2009, there was a great recession, but also we have seen after that great recession that was happened in 2007, 2008, it was like Founder Institute started and on that time. And we have seen like since then, the big companies which are disrupting these days, they have established 11 years ago. If you can see the list here, Airbnb, Zoom, WeWork, these are all company. Udemy, interesting thing is that Udemy is one of the startups which graduated from Founder Institute. So these all are startups are started like 10, 11 years ago. and these startups are like now they are like almost a unicorn company. So it takes time, as Rafiq and other mentor was mentioned, that funding is important, but also it's important for an entrepreneur to persevere, to dedicate, to give his 100%, and also validating the business model, and also launch it and then later on scale it. So, if in the post-COVID situation, Founder Institute can help anyone who would like to start the business, especially those who are attending this session right now. So, if I can help you in a few different aspects, like since COVID happened, so all our programs is going online, and we have also discounted fee, the program fee, which I'll discuss this later on. So here I would like to mention that how Founder Institute, where Founder Institute stand. Like they are different eco players in the ecosystem, like Y Combinator, Techstars, AngelList. So Founder Institute, as I mentioned earlier, it's a pre-seed startup accelerator where we work with founders and team to get a business to either to get traction or to get funding. So we have two paths. First for the launch track, and second is for the growth track. Launch track, I mean those startups who only have an idea and then they want to develop that idea in the 14 weeks or 4 months program, and then in which they need to go through with these three things, KPIs. First is the validation, second is the team, they need to develop a team, and third is the they go building a go to market strategy. This is quite different from those who are already started their business but now struggling or facing challenges to grow their business. So for those entrepreneurs, we have a growth track where we work with them to get the market traction as well as to raise funds. So during these stages, we will evaluate their progress, and there is a detailed program which I'll show you in later slides. So, if, as I mentioned earlier, for Founder Institute is a 14 weeks program comprised of like 4 months. Uh, Either it's for launch track or growth track. And once you graduate from Founder Institute, then it's not like other incubator or accelerator that it's up to you that how you get the most of it. We will help you throughout your entrepreneurship journey, because after Founder Institute we have a founder lab. So founder lab is, I will answer the question later on. So if you have any query, you can just post it on the chat. So regarding Founder Lab is a 3 to 6 months virtual advisory program, and that is helping the entrepreneur or startup in three different areas. First is the to get your business to product market fit. Second is the funding, and third is the close your Series A financing. Like it's about how you approach VCs and get your Series A funding. And once you complete that program, Founder Lab program, then it's that you'll be part of a FI team, and you'll part of FI alumni, and then you'll get connected with mentors and investors and founders from different part of the world. So as I mentioned earlier, there are many startups which graduated from Founder Institute. One of the startups is Udemy in North America, and there are other startups which is graduated in different parts of the world. Overall, these startups raised $950 million investment from the investors. So how do we do it? First, why we say that the reason we say Founder Institute, it's about we work with founders. So first, we believe that people are the most important asset, and it's one of the critical aspect of any successful business. So what we need to do, we need to find a great people, then give them a devoted support network, and through the structured program, we will help them to start and scale their business. So So for regarding the first aspect, we find great people. So Founders Institute is not like a me too kind of a other accelerator or incubator, because we have a very thorough uh, uh, testing program where we not only founders but also the directors who are already on board, they have to go through with a psychographic entrepreneurial DNA test. So all those founders who are applying to the program, first they need to go through an entrepreneurial DNA test. They will assess their entrepreneurial DNA, and if they are suitable and matured enough, then we allow them to qualify for the program. First thing. Second, we believe that great companies are not built alone. So through a constructive feedback and with the valuable feedback from the mentors, not only because since we are having our sessions online, so we have also a liberty to get any international mentor on board on us, or to have a session with them. So now it's a opportunity for all the founders who will get themselves enrolled into our second cohort, that they get access to these mentors. So we have different mentors. We have Asif Jafi, we have Amir Halim, who is the CEO of Qball. We have Asan Mashkoor, and different mentors. You can just visit to fi.co/mentors list, where you can see all the mentors' name. Now, this is the most interesting and important aspect of the presentation. Like other program, Founder Institute is different in a sense, like all the stakeholders, these all four stakeholders: alumni, mentors, leaders, and FIHQ. These all four holders will be like give their 100% to make all the startups successful. And for that, we Founder Institute offered a equity collective program. Equity collective program is the halfway through program. You contribute 4% in warrants to a 15-year equity collective. So all those startups who graduated from the Founder Institute program, uh, it's like after 2 months, they need to sign an equity collective agreement. And the equity collective agreement is that all the found startups which who graduated from the program, they will issue a 4% give 4% equity, and if I will buy that 4% equity from those startups. In return, that 4% is divided into these four slabs. First is the alumni. So let's say if there are 10 startups, so each individual, each founder have a equity in another person company, because we believe that peer learning is very important. Apart from mentor, apart from structured program and feedback from the directors and mentors, we believe कि जो सबसे ज्यादा learning होती है founders की, वो एक दूसरे के साथ जो अपनी problem share करते हैं. We have seen in many places के वो जो peer to peer learning होती है, वो सबसे ज्यादा massively value add करती है. So alumni will get 1% from each startup. Then 1% is allocated for the mentor. We recently allocated the bonus pool for the last cohort to all those mentors who were part of the last cohort. तो वो एक 1% equity जो है वो mentors को जाएगी. And then 1% for the leaders. Leaders mean the directors, that we are Umar, me, and Iram. And 1% goes to FIHQ. So and this is if you have any queries, we will try to answer it later on. The third aspect is that focus is a startup biggest challenge. We believe like it's very important for the successful startup to have a clear cut direction with a shared focus. So for that, we develop a highly structured program where you'll get feedback from all the mentors and directors, as well as you need to go through with 14-week sprint where you need to complete deliverables, weekly deliverables. So, as I mentioned earlier regarding a launch track and growth track, we have two different KPIs. The content is same. I mean, the program calendar is same, but the KPI and the milestones are different. So, in the first week, we'll having a orientation, then we'll having a vision session, The third week it's customer development, revenue, till the last week, which is showcase and celebration. So throughout this week, every founder is supposed to pitch their idea, work on their business idea, and develop a business model later on, convert that business model into a tangible product if possible, and also try to get the complete the legal process of his company. So all those companies who were participated in the last cohort, there was like 9 companies which graduated in the last cohort, which was completed in May 2020. uh, all those companies are registered with SECP, Security Exchange Commission of Pakistan. So this is the launch track. The growth track is different because the KPI and is different for the growth track because they need to raise funds and get traction from the customer. So additional perks from FI, it's as I mentioned, there is a weekly program going on, Ask Me Anything with Silicon Valley HQ team, including Edu Resi, who is the CEO of Founder Institute. And also one can discuss the queries. It's not only for any particular geography, it's applicable for all the Founder Institute chapter running worldwide. So this is it regarding Founder Institute. The fee. So the fee for this upcoming cohort is if you attended any of our event like this one, and if you want to get yourself enrolled, so the program fee is $249. So that was an early bird offer, and we uh, extended that offer for anyone who want to get enrolled into this program. So there's a 24 fee of $249 to get yourself registered in this program. So in summary, the Founder Institute provides a devoted support network and a structured growth process to help you get to traction and funding. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can visit our website. And if you have any questions, you can ask me right now. Thank you.
Iram, do we know if Faraz is back?
No, Faraz has some connectivity issues. He's still struggling. So I think let's carry on with the Q&A. If he
Great.
will join, then we'll take him. Otherwise, we'll just carry on the Q&A.
Wonderful. Please go ahead.
Okay, so now is the time for our startups, our participants to get their questions answered. First question was raised by Mr. Sakib, and he says, when you talk about business plan, please explain how a good business plan looks like. Please talk about more on business plan. What are the key ingredients of a good business plan? So, from the speakers who would like to answer this question.
Yeah, I'm happy to take this.
Sure.
So I think there's a formal structure, I think, and you can. I think somebody had posted a link to this as well. But just very quickly, one, being able to give an estimate of what your market size is or what the opportunity size is, and address the historical and potential future growth. The second component is to outline the competitive landscape. What kind of market are you getting into? Who are the existing players? What are their unique propositions? And how is yours? How does your business stack up against that? Number three is to identify the regulatory landscape. What are the opportunities and threats from legal regulatory perspectives? And I just want to take a moment over here to really identify that if your business is, and I've seen this too many times, if your business is contingent upon a tax break or a sort of favorable duty structure, it's not a business. And I can tell you that because as part of the Daud Group, I was an investor in a company called Inbox Technologies, which dominated laptop sales in Pakistan up until 2005. And the reason that it dominated personal computers, the reason that it dominated the personal computer space until 2005 is because there was a 25% there was a 25% duty on imports. And as a result, Inbox could sell its personal computer at the at a lower price than HP, Dell, etc. When that duty was taken away, overnight the business collapsed and had to pivot into a completely different sort of structure. So number 3 is identifying your regulatory landscape and the opportunities and threats therein. Number 4 is to identify what your revenue and demand drivers are, and to be able to articulate where you're going to appropriate value from the value that you have created. Number 5 is to identify what your cost drivers are. If you can present a set of projections, that's great. And finally, a segment that talks about the team, its unique value proposition, its genesis, and its core values. I think if I've missed anything, somebody else can probably.
No, I think your answer was quite comprehensive, and just a general thing. If for the participants, that if you can just uh, Google business model canvas or lean canvas, all the ingredients in that gives a complete business picture which you can pitch to anyone initially at an initial stage. For an investor, yes, definitely a detailed costing and expense details are required, but the basic ingredients are in these two models. Nowadays, very long 50-page, 100-page business model plans are not required. Just the canvas is enough. So if you just can Google and find out, you'll get to know. And if you need further details, you can always contact us back. So the next question is directly from Tamur. And it says, can you list a couple of pitfalls which new entrepreneurs fall for? I really like the example of competing against established businesses with was a light bulb moment about appreciate one or two biggest pitfalls to avoid. So over to you, Tamur, again.
Hi, sorry, my internet lagged a little bit. I didn't hear the question.
Okay, it says, can you list a couple of pitfalls which new entrepreneurs fall for? I really like the example of competing against established businesses. Was a light bulb moment about appreciate one or two biggest pitfalls to avoid.
Got it. Okay. So, number 1 is that when you're haggling with an investor, there is a propensity to oversell. What do I mean by this? Your business plan is often the uh, fundamental building block towards your valuation negotiations. And there's an inherent conflict over there. You want to show that you don't have that much of a burn and that you're going to get very, very profitable very, very quickly so that you can extract the maximum value from your investor. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you have enough cash to fund your business plan, to fund whatever the burn is, um, and to be able to identify what that burn is going to get you eventually. Um, and so that conflict is answered by being truthful. Um, Within your team, before you go to an investor, if all of you agree on everything that you're about to pitch, there's something wrong. Um, there needs to be an active effort within the team to develop a culture of questioning. Um, and therein lies the answer to managing that conflict. Entrepreneurs will often try to will often make this mistake of saying, you know what, we'll figure it out. And then when the time comes, there isn't an answer. So think very carefully about what your business really needs before going into a valuation negotiation. Um, that's one. The other thing is, and again, this talks about cash burn, is what is it that you are paying for? I understand that, particularly in the tech space, the notion of operational cash burn is, you know, the uh, the hot topic. Everybody, every business has to answer a question about how much cash they're going to burn, and whether or not they're going to have to spend that money to get a certain amount of growth. Now, yes, you probably will need to burn a certain amount of cash um, in order to get your growth plans. But the question is, where are you spending it? And what does that get you? And I just want to talk about Baikia's example in this, and Rafiq will probably be able to add a whole load of insight on this. There is a choice between spending money to get discount seekers um, who are wherein really the only problem that you're solving is that people want to get away with a deal. And, while that's one way of approaching a business, it's not necessarily sustainable. If, however, your cash burn is to create, and in Baikia's case, this was really the solution. If your cash burn is to facilitate eventually creating a network that has a barrier to entry, then that's valuable. You're paying for an asset that can be monetized subsequently. So make sure that you are very clear about what your cash burn is getting you, and that you can measure the return on whatever soft asset you are creating from that cash burn.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope this answers the question. If any further clarification is needed, please you can type in the chat. There is another question from Mr. Asad this time, and the question, I hope we still have Mr. Asad. Yes, we have him. Asad, the question is a couple of questions regarding soft skills. What do you consider the most important soft skill? Additionally, my second question is, I've been trying to forecast for 2 to 4 years, but any tips on how to do it? This is a question from Mr. Rayan.
Also, I would appreciate if Asad can uh, add on that how one can value the startup valuation. Startup valuation कैसे करें?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So soft skill, I think this is the soft skills, Jana, there is such an expansive area, soft skills का, but I think the most basic soft skills, right, that people look for. सबसे basic soft skills होती हैं आपके पास, especially when you're approaching new people, right? You're approaching an investor, you're sitting in a meeting, etc. Is your ability to learn and be flexible, right? So even let's say at Kareem was quite a big company when I left Kareem, but we were still learning, right? We were still learning lots of new things. So we couldn't say that we know how the ride hailing works, we know how the economics works, we know how the unit economics are for this industry. We were still learning a lot, even after 5-6 years of operations. So I think the most important soft skill is your ability कि आप learn कर सकते हैं और flexible रह सकते हैं. You can change approaches. So let's say अगर आप किसी को, let's say if you're having discussion and say no, I know how it works, मुझे पता है काम कैसे होता है, right? So that closes all the doors. So for example, one of the things in startups is never start a conversation with no. कोई conversation no से start नहीं करें. This cannot be done, right? So be always flexible, be always exploring, be always learning. That's the most important soft skill, that if you're speaking to investors needs to be reassured that this guy is building a company, or this group of people are building a company, they can learn and they can pivot, they can change as they go forward. So I think that's the most important soft skill that needs to come out. इसके अलावा of course बाकी तो I think काफी आपकी your interpersonal skills, the way you speak to people, can you get along, can you spend 2 hours with that person in the room and discuss things, you know, how much energy this person has, how much energy this person brings to the room. तो आपकी बाकी तो होती हैं soft skills as a good person to be with in the room. बाकी I think बाकी are quite straightforward. I think valuation is जो second सवाल वो valuation के ऊपर, I think valuation के ऊपर वो जो तैमूर I think mentioned a few things कि business plan कैसा होना चाहिए, right? Business plan के अंदर I think one of the most important things in your business plan is yes आपकी कितनी बड़ी market आपकी आपकी competition क्या है इसके अंदर, but let's say 2 years down, 1 year down the line, 2 year down the line, 3 year down the line आपका cash flow क्या होगा, right? आपके पास पैसे कितने आ रहे होंगे कंपनी के अंदर, कैश फ्लो कैसा होगा, आपके प्रॉफिट्स कितने होंगे, रेवेन्यू कैसे होंगे, एटसेट्रा. जब आप कंपनी शुरू में बिल्ड कर रहे होंगे उस वक्त तो आपके पास यू डोंट हैव एनी, यू जस्ट हैव अ स्प्रेडशीट, राइट? अगर उस स्टेज पे आप बिजनेस पैसे रेज करने जाएंगे, valuation of that company is very difficult, but still I think VCs या investors look at your future forecasted cash flows और उसकी बेस पे आपकी कंपनी वैल्यूएशंस कर देते हैं. Now the most basic tool जो यूज होता है वैल्यूएशन के लिए वो होता है कि आपका रेवेन्यू कितना होगा, उस रेवेन्यू का मल्टीपल मिल जाएगा, राइट? सो आई थिंक स्टार्टअप्स के अंदर बॉल पार्क फिगर आजकल होती है, अगर आप लेट्स से सीरीज वगैरह के लिए जाते हैं रेज करने के लिए, वो होता है आपका रेवेन्यू का आपको मल्टीपल कितना मिलेगा, आपकी कंपनी की परफॉर्मेंस कैसी है, ग्रोथ कैसी है, उसकी बेस पे आपको कहते हैं हम आपके रेवेन्यू का, अगर आपका 1 लाख का रेवेन्यू है तो हम आपको into 5 कर देंगे आपकी कंपनी की वैल्यूएशन, 5 लाख की आपकी कंपनी की वैल्यूएशन है. For more mature companies, the valuation आपकी फिर वो हटना शुरू हो जाती है आपके रेवेन्यू से, it comes to your profits, EBITDA के profitability कितनी है उसका मल्टीपल मिलना शुरू हो जाता है. तो I think depending on what stage you are, आपकी वैल्यूएशन काफी डिफरेंट होती है. आप जब शुरू में आप पैसे रेज कर रहे होंगे आपकी वैल्यूएशन is going to be very different, your multiple is going to be much very different than if you're raising a seed round or a series A round, etc. So काफी लंबा चौड़ा सब्जेक्ट है, but I think depending on what stage you are at, उसकी valuation normally is early startups की based on your future cash flow निकलती है valuation आपका साल के एंड पे रेवेन्यू क्या फोरकास्टेड है, आपका 2 साल के एंड पे क्या फोरकास्टेड, आपके प्रॉफिट्स क्या होंगे साल के एंड पे, सेकंड ईयर के एंड पे क्या होंगे प्रॉफिट्स आपके, एंड अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स गो इनटू दैट कैलकुलेशन कि आपकी वैल्यूएशन क्या निकालनी है कंपनी. आई थिंक तैमूर विल बी एबल टू add some flesh to this skeleton. Okay, what do they do in terms of valuation?
Yeah, I mean, particularly in startups, I think valuations are challenging because, you know, जो mature companies के लिए वैसे देखते हैं is a whole other thing. But I think really, you know, the unit economics that were spoken about earlier are really, really important. अगर आप एक, you know, if you're able to sort of understand what eventually your unit economics are going to look like at a certain given scale, then you know, that discounted back to today is probably the best way for anybody to value your company.
So yeah, spot on.
Ji, thank you. Basically, there are 2 more questions which I'll read both the questions so that we can then jointly answer it. One question is how about equity or share, like how much to give to the investor if initially they are asking for. And the second question is we hear a lot about investors burn the funds to achieve penetration, but when we seek someone, even venture firms, they ask about the profitability. How can we achieve profitability without burning the amount? And then he says, as ride-hailing services require funds to burn. So I think Taimur or Rafiq can answer this question.
I'll take the second question. Basically, look, I think the landscape of investments is changing. हर इंडस्ट्री में एक मेच्योरिटी का लेवल आता है, एक शुरुआत होती है, एवोल्यूशन होती है, एक मेच्योरिटी होती है उसके बाद, राइट? सो लाइक look, when companies like Kareem, like Uber started, it was all about sort of dominating their geographies or expanding the business to such an extent where it just becomes part and parcel of your daily life. And eventually उनकी जो strategy थी वो ये थी, यार इतना बड़ा network हो जाए कि eventually वो network से अगर 10 सेंट भी हर ट्रिप पे मोनेटाइज कर दें तो इतने ज्यादा तादाद में ट्रिप्स हो रहे हो कि that would eventually just, it would end up being a lot of money at the end of the day, right? And investors learned over the time that money is not in short supply, actually, right? I think Asad had touched upon this earlier on in his talk. He said देखिए operators का कम है, there's more money chasing less operators out there, right? It's the people that investors are betting on that aren't enough of, right? And as these companies started scaling, they noticed that, yeah, there were copycats that came around everywhere else in the world. Gojek aa gaya, Indonesia mein Grab aa gaya, China mein Didi aa gaya, Meituan aa gaya. There were all these companies that sprung up on the same philosophy, and they all had the money. The Chinese had the money, the Indonesians had the money, the Americans had the money, the people in the Middle East had the money. So money wasn't an issue. It wasn't a barrier to entry, right? The barrier to entry was the ability to execute on the business. And when that happened, right, penetration, it became like it wasn't really that necessary to have such deep penetration at the expense of burning bootloads of money. And hence the narrative changed, the conversation changed eventually, and investors realized कि यार हम पैसे देते जाएंगे, startups जलाते जाएंगे, बड़े होते जाएंगे, लेकिन और भी कोई बंदा है, if somebody, there's another rich guy sitting on the other side of the pond who has the same amount of money that I do, and he can do the same thing. So I can't really go after world domination. I can't be the only ride-hailing company in the world that everybody has on their phone, because other players will keep coming in. Hence, the conversation shifted to the path to profitability. And to profitability, ke yaar, sure, you've demonstrated that you can grow the business through discounts or ruin customers by creative marketing. Okay, can you hang on to these customers? Are these customers willing to spend 8, 10, 15, 20 bookings, net trips on your platform that you actually earn money off, which is your revenue as a company? And then the conversation shifted to customer lifetime value, right? And then everything, then the whole scenario changed. It wasn't about just raising a lot of money and showing a lot of trips. It was about raising money to compete with bigger companies who had better technology, better penetration, but then eventually showcase that, yeah, your business model can actually create not just value, but actually create dollars and cents for its investors. And I think that ये जो bubble रहा है fundraising का, okay, ये आहिस्ता आहिस्ता burst हो रहा है दुनिया में. We are a late adopter to this. I think Pakistan has raised about $100 billion in the last 2 years in this space, if my data is correct. But I feel that the conversations is not, that the new entrepreneurs are going to have to have with their investors, or the conversations rather that investors will look for from new entrepreneurs, is not just a growth strategy. It's got to be a growth and profitability strategy. Because sound business, at the end of the day, the fundamentals of business is how to make a profit, right? And if you can't do that, then no matter how good your story is or how cool you make it sound, it just doesn't make fundamental sense. So I think new people who are watching this and listening to this, definitely your business ideas should make fundamental sense at the end of the day. Otherwise, it's not a worthwhile business pursuit.
So I don't know how many people watch stock market or stock market कितने देखते हैं. So आपका जो टेक्नोलॉजी स्टॉक्स हैं यूएस में Nasdaq, right? So Nasdaq is hitting new highs. So records break कर रही है. Amazon हो गया, Tesla हो गया, all these companies के stocks जो हैं वो record high पे हैं इस वक्त. Exponential growth during COVID times. The only stock that hasn't grown on the stock market, which is a tech unicorn, वो है आपका Uber. So Uber was a superstar, right? So your last decade, let's say from 2010 to 2020, the whole hysteria in Silicon Valley was land grab at whatever cost, land grab. So scale as quickly as possible, grab as much land as possible at whatever the cost. और वो लीड किया था आई थिंक भी एक वहाँ पे बहुत बड़ा वो है फंड सॉफ्ट बैंक राइट $100 अरब का फंड है they led that hysteria so if you were looking for $100 million they'll give you $300 million to scale quickly just spend money and scale so आपके पास काफी सारी companies थी that were part of that cycle right Uber was one of them
at a crazy valuation also
at
they'll
a
give you
crazy
$300 million at a crazy valuation also
so आपका Uber led the pack followed very closely by WeWork जो workspace की company थी and the whole idea was कि यार scale as quickly as possible and we'll figure out profitability later on हम figure out कर लेंगे profitable कैसे होना है बाद में figure out करेंगे वो so जब Uber listing के लिए जा रही थी I think the expectations were that they were going to list at around $120 billion के ऊपर listing होगी but the market had turned from this land grab at cost at scale at whatever cost I think it's valued right now about 40-45 अरब की valuation है Uber की as of now so that whole hysteria but having said that yes having said that I think VCs are still smart so they understand your business is going to burn money to start with right so आपके शुरू में साल 2 साल your business will lose money depending on what business you are in what your unit economics are but your business will lose money it will take some time for you to be profitable so पैसे तो खर्च होंगे right so don't shy away from that कि यार हम पहले अगर आप किसी VC को प्लान दिखाओगे कि हम दूसरे महीने से प्रॉफिट बना देंगे he'll throw you out of the room right क्योंकि हो नहीं सकता पैसे बन नहीं सकते दूसरे महीने so have realistic assumptions in the form of कि भाई इतने पैसे चाहिए हमें हमारे margins बेहतर होंगे हमारा economies of scale आएगा business में 2 years down the line 3 years down the line and we will make money once we get to that economies of scale हमारे margins बेहतर हो जाएंगे scale बड़ा हो जाएगा so पैसे burn तो होंगे but have a realistic business plan in terms of कि यार this is how we're going to make money I think जिस तरह रफीक बात कर रहा था कि आपके पास path to profitability should always be there and that path to profitability needs to be realistic path to profitability that investors will believe कि जब आप उनको दिखाएंगे हाँ भाई हमारा जब स्केल बड़ा होगा तो हमारे मार्जिन जो हैं वो हमारी बाइंग बेहतर हो जाएगी या मार्जिन बेहतर हो जाएंगे बिकॉज स्केल बढ़ जाएगा हमारा so it's believable story right believable story behind that so yes I think the answer from my side yes it will still cost you will still burn money but it will not be growth at any cost Kareem में एक जो I think one of the biggest learnings we had at Kareem वो थोड़ी सी लेट आई but it was growth with better experience not with bigger discounts so it cannot be just bigger discounts that gives you the growth it has to be much better experience that gets you the growth of the business
yeah and sorry one other thing right I think you need to be able to identify कि इस बिजनेस में जो भी आपका बिजनेस है जो भी आप पिच करें कि इस बिजनेस में मेरे कंट्रोल में क्या लेवर्स होंगे क्या कंट्रोल्स होंगे कौन से नॉब्स होंगे जिनको मैं टर्न कर सकूंगा इवेंचुअली ताकि मैं बेहतर वैल्यू ड्राइव कर सकूं या बेहतर बॉटम लाइन ड्राइव कर सकूं so I think it's very important for you to identify or be able to at least identify some of those levers commission rate take rate whatever जो भी आपके बिजनेस में relevant है ताकि इन्वेस्टर्स आल्सो सी के यार you've thought of this आपने ये सोचा you've thought this through कि यार ये सिर्फ अगले 6 महीने या 3 महीने या साल की बात नहीं हो रही these guys have thought through कि यार अगले 3 साल में where are we going to be right and you're not going to get everything right from day one as you start the business
I'll give you a bit of insight from Kareem so जब मैंने Kareem में start किया था ना तो we used to have weekly calls with Mudassir मुदस्सिर से वीकली कॉल होती थी, उसमें हम डिसाइड करते थे यार कि बर्न कितना होगा और ग्रोथ कितनी आनी है, राइट? So ये दो चीज़ें डिस्कस होती थी कि ओके, वो कहता था हमें 50% ग्रोथ चाहिए, मैं कहता था ओके मुझे $3 मिलियन चाहिए अगर इतना ग्रो करना है, राइट? एंड ऑलमोस्ट विदाउट फेल फॉर द फर्स्ट 12 odd months बर्न यूज्ड टू बी मोर. अगर उनसे हम कहते थे यार कि $2 मिलियन खर्च होगा, वो 3 हो जाते थे, लेकिन ग्रोथ आ जाती थी. And then the discussion never used to go forward from that. Growth aa gayi hai? Okay. So the mentality was grow at any cost, grow at any cost. Baad mein rationalization aa gayi. I think that whole mindset has changed. So
Yeah, but even then, right? You guys knew the levels. You knew कि यार आपका commission शुरू में 10% था. You could make it 15% and reduce the burn, right? You that was identified, right?
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to showcase. That look, you have to have some controls in your hand. एक control panel होता है ना, एक pilot का एक cockpit होता है, driver के steering होता है. He knows how to steer the car. और speed होती है यार, he can increase the speed or press the brake or change the gear. You need to know what your levers are, your gears are, what your turning mechanism is going to be. If you need to pivot, all of these things you need to think through at least. So when you talk to investors, they should know कि आपने ये सारी चीजें सोची हैं, and that tells them that you are approaching your approach is mature.
Absolutely.
So it was a very interesting talk, and I'm sure all the participants did benefit well with this discussion. And if any participant has any further questions, they can always write back to us and we will address their queries. And if they need any other session, please request us, we can arrange for that. And back to you, Umar, for the closing remarks.
Wow, so this was without a doubt the most action-packed and the most information-intensive session that FI has organized. I'm going to be rewatching this, I think at least a couple of times, because there are several things that I will need to follow up, but I'm going to do them one-on-one with the panelists. Guys, please do feel free to send us questions on LinkedIn as well. We will be posting the video on LinkedIn and YouTube. So look forward to your thoughts. And for those of you who are still kind of wondering, 2FI or not 2FI, the answer is please FI. It will actually change the way that you view the world. And it will set you up for not necessarily success in a particular venture, but it will improve your chances of success as a founder in the long term. One of the things that came out from these discussions was that founders don't normally hit a 6 on their first journey to the pitch. It takes a lot. I mean, you have to get out there. You have to, it's not really like a cricket match. It's more like a blood sport, gladiator style wrestling, where you go into the ring once, you get the crap beaten out of you, you go back again, you get the crap beaten out of you, and every time you learn from experience. You're not starting from the same place of zero every single time. So this is what really I think the biggest value addition of FI is. Plus, of course, you get access to incredible mentors, incredible storytelling, and incredible sharing of insights. And for that, gentlemen, I doff my hat. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. And thank you to all our participants for the wonderful level of engagement. This has been absolutely outstanding. Thank you all. And
one last thing. If all participants can turn their video on and we can have a picture as a quick picture, if everyone can.
Yeah, that would be great. If you guys don't mind, if you are in a suitable state of dress, as they say. This is the real challenge in today's work from home environment.
I'm sure would you please take the picture? Okay.
Yes, sure. Just give me a minute.
Yeah,
So
sure.
let me promote all the participants as a panelist so they can share their screen, share their videos.
Okay.
Just wait.
Yeah.
I thought Omar was going to say, if Kareem was burning so much money, why didn't they have money for marketing?
We're not going there, Asad. We're not going there today. ये जो मेरे बाल का
चीजें
हाल है ना, ये करीम के बाद हुआ है.
बीच में तो दाढ़ी भी आ गई थी उमर की.
हाँ मतलब yeah.
Okay, so I guess
Are we ready for the picture? Everyone,
yes.
if any participant is not interested to turn the video on, it's okay. We will just have their names.
आपका नाम गायबाना नाम हमारे पास आ जाएगा.
हाँ.
Okay,
So
I'll be taking picture in a second. Just wait. Okay, now ready.
We do a thumbs up.
yeah, thumbs up.
Just give me a minute. Okay, thumbs up, guys.
Thumbs up.
Thank you so much. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you,
for
everyone.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Speakers. And
Thank you,
Allah.
guys. Thank you for having us.
Hafiz.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Allah
Asad,
Hafiz.
Rafiq,
Thank you.
Taimur, Umar, and Nira. Take care.
Thanks for having us, Summer. Thank you.